Thank you for attending my talk. It's my first time here. It's not my first time working with AGL, because I've been working with AGL for the last months. I'm part of the Bitergia team, and as Walt said, we are analyzing the project, but it's my first time in this conference. So first things first, what I'm going to show you is already documented in the AGL wiki. So in case you want to have a look, you have the QR to get the link. Let me present myself. My name is Luis Cañas-Díaz, very well pronounced, by the way. So my background is empirical software engineering background. I started working with open source in 2003 in a research group in Madrid. And during the last 15 years, I've been part of the Bitergia team. And I'm also Greenmar Lab and Chaos contributor. Maybe you don't know Chaos and Greenmar Lab. Chaos stands for Community Health Analytics for Open Source Software. It is a project which is part of the Linux Foundation, and the main goal is to provide insights, metrics, and key recommendations to work with metrics and assess the health and maintainability and sustainability points of view of projects. And I'm also a Greenmar Lab contributor. Greenmar Lab is one of the software pieces that is developed within that project. And Bitergia, we are the main contributor to Greenmar Lab, and I'm contributor to Greenmar Lab too. So I co-founded the company Bitergia with some folks 13 years ago. And currently, I'm the lead and the lead data consultant, which is quite fun because I have the opportunity to work with projects like AGL. Our core competencies are, we're a small company, we're in Spain, we are 15 people, so we know that we must emphasize offering high quality data. And this is what we are doing. We get data from open source projects, and we contextualize the data into different industry verticals. We are experts in inner source and open source, and we help bridging visibility to upper management level on development activities. And this is the data I'm going to show you later. Before going on, this is some context about the company. We are small, but we've been working with very well-known big corporations in the last years. Those are a subset, the ones that allow us to use the logo. And I'm presenting this study that we are doing with Agustin Benito from Toxcalix Consulting. So we are collaborating with him because he's a very well-known expert in automotive and embedded systems to provide the insights. So you may not be familiar with the topic. So before showing you some data that I know that is yummy, let me show you the challenges that we have. By the way, the QR is the same, okay? The QR points to the documentation in AGL wiki. First, connected vehicles rely on quality software. Either the software is created in-house or by a third-party company. You need high-quality software, and the complexity of the software is increasing and increasing and increasing. The second challenge that you may face is that you have to reduce the time to market. You have to apply cybersecurity or safety updates as quick as possible. You have to adapt to customer requests. So it's need to reduce the time to market. As a consequence, if you are able to reduce the time to market, the theory says that you will be able to reduce the waste, because the shorter iterations, the early in the process that you identify that something is not working well. So the theory tells us that the cost in the long term will be smaller. And in this area, we have to deal with the frustration of the teams that are working in software in automotive industry without using the correct insights, without using the correct motivation parameters. We end up having frustrated people, and we end up having a high turnover, which ends up having teams that are losing the knowledge, and this affects the software. And the fourth challenge, and we've been at this point several times, is that we have to allow the upper management, the chief level, to make decisions. There is a very well-known retailer company that sells T-shirts, clothing, etc., they know everything about the T-shirts they sell. They know if a shop is not selling the T-shirts, red T-shirts, size XL, whatever. They have no idea about what is happening with the software. They know if everything is working unexpectedly in all the parts of the company except on the software. We are facing a similar situation in industry. We've been talking with many chief level executives that told us, I have no idea what is happening with the software. So basically, they don't have visibility. So it is not possible to make important decisions. So to face this challenge, automotive organizations have to work on things like automation. So no manual changes, no manual steps, keep reducing them, agile principles to be able to deliver software as soon as possible, improve hardware testing with the same goal, and something that is already done, but not very well done from a point of view, is to provide advanced data analytics. And it is key to apply them through the entire production process. And this is what is not happening so far. So let me offer some common recommendations for the ones that are not very familiar with data. In case you are, in your company, you are working with data, I hope that those are useful to you. First one is that you should be careful with the bottom-up approach. We've been in several occasions with companies that are using data because they have it. The different teams are using the data, and they are using metrics. And that's cool. Maybe they need them to be more efficient. But those metrics are not aligned with the business goals. So they are not really important to the organization. Okay? So I've been working with some automotive companies that created a team that is the data team. So that team collects all the data for all the data sources, tools the company is using. So they have all the data, and they start providing metrics to everyone, and they start looking for stakeholders. That is cool, and they even create their own tool to collect data. That is perfect, but this is not aligned with the business goals. So what managers face is that they don't have a strategy. So when they want to know what is happening, they have no idea. When they want to improve the overall goal, they don't know how to do, because all the different units underneath are working in specific metrics that are not aligned. And this is a very obvious problem, but it's key. So one of the recommendations is that you should bring a strategy to the data thinking. And when I mention strategy, is that we have to avoid talking about metrics. I'm a metric geek, but we have to avoid talking about metrics as an initial step. We have to talk about business goals. Okay? If you start talking about metrics, most of the time, is a technical discussion. We have to talk about the business goals that we are trying to achieve. When we are sure about the business goals, all the people, all the units involved must align to those business goals. And we have to define clear metrics that they are following, they're using as a reference. If not, we're going to end up having misaligned teams. So this is why we said, if you enter a discussion and you keep talking about metrics without talking about the goals, that is a red flag. And this is what we suggest, we recommend that we have to apply business intelligence, because we have to allow the chief management level, the chief level people to make business decisions, and they must know what is happening. So, how we do this? Well, in case you're not familiar with business intelligence, there is a journey that you have to start. First, you have to collect the data, and this is being done by many different teams, many different places. So this is kind of common. Second, you have to describe what is the current status. You have to be able to describe what is happening in the whole process. I'm not talking about code development or integration or about the platform or the people working with the racks in order to get bills. I'm talking about the end-to-end process. So you have to be able to describe the process. Second, when you are able to describe the process, you can identify what is happening and why. What's the root cause of the things that are happening? That is what is called the diagnostic. So you can do that with the information you have from the past until now. When you reach that point, you can start predicting what is going to happen. Because based on what you've learned, you're going to say, okay, you're going to know, okay, I know this is going to happen. So you start the prediction. And one step beyond, if you reach this point, you will be able to recommend next actions. You will be able to tell your teams how they should perform to avoid some common issues you identified in the past. So we can see the journey with this chart. We start collecting data. We start answering this question. What has happened? What is the current status? From start to end. Why did it happen? What is the root cause? Why the lead time is so big? Why my customers need to wait 60 days to have an update? Why is this happening? When we get there, we can start looking at the future instead of looking at the past. We can predict what is going to happen next based on what we learned. And when we reach this point, we can start with a prescriptive analysis. What actions should be taken to avoid this issue in the past? So let me talk about what we are doing with AGL. Using the same idea, we call it, with Angus team, we call it delivery performance analytics. And we start with the data collection. And we start the data collection with an open source tool for our open source project. Our open source tool is called Bitergia Analytics Platform. And it's 99.9% based on Grimoire Lab, which is the project I mentioned that is created by the Chaos project. So with Bitergia Analytics Platform, we're able to collect data from many different tools, what we call data sources. So as soon as we have the tool, the data ready, we make sure that the data is ready to be consumed. Okay? So this will be, by the way, we offer a service, a software as a service platform in case you want to try it. So we have to consume the data and make sure that the data is ready to be consumed for those teams that are going to consume the metrics. So what data do we have for AGL? Well, we have tools, we have knowledge. First, we have tools. We have the Git commit logs, chains applied to code, repositories, people, metadata, Gerrit chain sets, so the reviews of the code, the different interactions between people, the different iterations of the reviews, and we have the builds, how the snapshots are created. And when we start having the data, we start learning from the process and from the organization. We have to learn the people involved, the organizations involved, the teams involved, the roles involved. Here, in this process, we have the delivery process for AGL, the model we created, split by roles. So we start with a commit that creates a change set in Gerrit. The change set Gerrit gets accepted, gets merged, and we end up with a valid snapshot, the release candidate snapshot. Okay? So this is a process that we model. So you have to learn from your process to create the model. And you have to create a model which is kind of simple, so you can measure from the starting point to the end point what is happening. You don't have to deal with the things that are happening in between, because you are going to get lost. You're going to start calculating so many metrics that you're going to get lost. I've been in a situation with several customers that were dealing with something that was happening here between teams. They are introducing more bugs than us, and they are not very efficient. And we were, okay, let's find out what is happening. And we got lost. So we provided a value. It was an added value, but it is not what really can change your performance. So when you have a model, you can start creating, instead of a black box where you measure from entry point to the endpoint, what is happening, some key metrics, some basic metrics. You can start splitting the black box into different ones. This is what we are doing with this model in the second iteration. Okay? But don't worry about the model. This is too technical. This is something that I have to discuss with the AGL folks because we made some changes. Focus on, we have the starting point of an event, of a process. We have the end event, and we have 2 stages. Also, with a starting event and end event. And we can start measuring what is happening, what is the evolution. So in order to measure, in order to describe the data before we start with the diagnosis, we are using 4 simple metrics. They were the DORA metrics for like 7 years ago, because the DORA metrics changed. Basically, we are measuring throughput and stability. We're interested in times, so the time your code needs from this point there until it gets ready to be used. So your code ends in the snapshot. You also need the time between valid snapshots. So you know how many times, what is the time between 2 valid snapshots in your project. And we also are using some stability measures to know what is happening when something goes wrong. Okay? How quick is your system reacting that event? And we start seeing some data. And this is new data, by the way. So this is the data we are analyzing for the Meta AGL repository from the first change that is merged until the first successful snapshot is ready. Focus on the blue line, which is the median, and we are talking about days. So we have in the y-axis the lead time in days that the whole process takes. Okay? As soon as we know how much time we need, how long we need, we can start having more questions, identifying bottlenecks. Okay? For instance, we have a peak in April 2024. It was 35 days, both for the median and for the 75th percentile. So most of the values were up to 35 days, which is a long period. And nowadays, this is the date up to June. This is close. The orange line represents 1 week. So most of the values we get are below 1 week. So the situation is kind of improving. Of course, it improved a lot since April this week. We have some stability here regarding the events, regarding the trends. Something that we have to do here that is not done is that we also have to put in context the data. We know that there are several events that affect the release. We have not events like this, but also releases, conferences, and these need to be taken into consideration. So if you remember this model, we are measuring the time we need from here to here. That's all for a repository. So we know what is happening there. So let's go a bit deeper, but only a little bit. We are going to split this black box into 2 black boxes. First stage, second stage. In the first stage, everything related to touching code or configuration files. Second stage, everything related to, I want this build to be successful until I get it. Okay? And there may be many iterations here because Jenkins goes crazy. Something is not working well. I need to do something with the machines, etc. So this is what we get. This is the first stage. So focus on the orange line, which is a week. This is the first stage from code to the beginning of the creation of a snapshot, so the black box on the left. And we see the same peak with a very high value. So the bottleneck, in this case, is the first stage, not the second one. Focus on April 2024. We have it here. We are below a week. Most of the values are below 3 days. So the issue here is not what is happening in Jenkins, but it's not happening the issue is not what is happening in Jenkins with the snapshots creation. It is what is happening in the first step, in the first stage. What happens before the team thinks that they are ready to produce a snapshot. So, but this is the second stage. Those are the data points until June. What is happening here? So suddenly, the times go down for most of the values below 1 day. So those are the type of questions that we can start asking as soon as we describe the data. But first, we have to describe the data for the entire process with all the teams. I repeat it again. When we mention mobile teams, we have to involve not only the people working in the software in-house, but ideally, the people providing the software from a third party. So what's such a big reduction here in the lead time for the integration, what we call integration, the second stage? Is it because of an improvement? Is it because maybe those folks were sick, so they couldn't work? So we have suddenly a valley? Or it is because something they created that is suddenly improving everything? So whatever happened here, we have to focus that needs to be evaluated since the overall view, since the whole process. If not, we are focusing too much on something, okay? So now, let me show you some real data. Well, this is real data, but let me show you something that Jean-Simon mentioned some months ago, maybe, in a meeting we had. He mentioned that you were working on an improvement for the builds, and you expected the builds to be way faster now. So now we are focusing only on a small fraction of the entire picture, only to show you that when we have the questions and we have the description, we can start double-checking if the improvements are working as expected. So Jean-Simon said there should be a decline in build time because the builds are using NFS now, okay? This is related to Jenkins and the generation of the snapshot. And this is data. Let me show you the real dashboard. So this is the Bitergia Analytics platform with data we have for AGL, in this case for Jenkins. And here we're measuring the duration time for the builds for a specific set of builds that we are using, that are the builds that are using frequently. And if I maximize this, we see that from June 2023 until now, we have a big reduction since the improvement was applied. So what it means is that the data confirms the improvement. Okay. But is the effect of this improvement affecting the global status? And this is the type of question that you have to ask yourself and your team when someone is done. Is this going to affect the overall performance? So if this happens in this data that will be updated soon, we'll see that those trends will go down if the impact is big enough, okay? This is the black box, the entire black box, from commit to a snapshot, okay? So if the improvement is big in what you do, you'll see a reduction here. And as we are talking about the second stage, the second black box, this trend will be confirmed. But this is something that we will see in the future. And how much time do you have?
7 minutes.
Okay. So can we identify other rival bottlenecks? Because we see that there was an improvement in the builds. So we were here talking about 400 minutes. So we have a huge improvement until we get here, which is like a 300 minutes improvement. Not bad at all. So this trend is going to change soon. So, but what else? So as I mentioned before, there is a big the time we need in the first stage, what is it? Is big. It's really, really big. So can we identify bottlenecks somehow? Well, we have the data now. We can play with the data. I've been preparing this dashboard with two simple metrics. The name is quite fancy, but the metric is quite simple. Here, we are seeing the data for Gerrit for a single repository, for Meta AGL. We're going to focus on this chart. This chart is called Review Efficiency Index. Very fancy name, very simple idea. So we have a threshold, which is 1. If your team is below 1, it is a bad symptom because your backlog is growing. So you are not attending all the changes that you are getting. If you are above, it seems that you are reducing the backlog. So good, bad. With that picture, you can see if your team is able to digest everything they get. Okay? So we are basically dividing the number of change sets closed by the number of received change sets. That's all. So simple idea. And this is even more simpler. This is the lead time. So the time since the creation of the change set until the change set is merged. We have a huge peak here, so something happened. But if you see in the previous chart, there was a huge peak. So the team was performing pretty well because they were closing all change sets. I'm pretty sure, I haven't seen the data, but I'm pretty sure that they were closing all change sets with a lot of time open. And this is why we have this peak here. Okay? So we have the data. So we can query data for all, in this case, for all the Gerrit repositories. Oops. Hopefully. So we talk about the data. We talk about the journey, collect data, describe, diagnosis to identify root causes of the issues, forecast to foresee what is going to happen next, and to prescribe, to offer recommendations about what should be done. We have the data, in this case, for the process. For the process, we have the data for the different tools, Gerrit, Jenkins, but we also have data about how the different teams collaborate. And I want to show this based on the Meta AGL repository. Each point here, let me make this a bit bigger. Each yellow point represents a team, in this case, organization. Each blue point represents a file. The bigger the node, the more modification it has. So in this case, when we create this diagram, we always look for different patterns. First one is to identify silos. So maybe some teams are working without collaborating to each other. The other pattern is to identify central players. So people, the nodes, yellow nodes that are here, are more relevant because they interact with different teams. Okay? This is something I created just to show you, but we created something similar to a T1 customer because they were really concerned about two teams. They were clashing. Two teams that were clashing because they were using different methodologies. There was an argument between them, and we were in the middle. And one of the hypotheses was that the team using the old methodology was adding more bugs. So basically, we identified, this is what I've mentioned before, that we got lost in the middle of the process, because instead of providing something that was meaningful for the entire corporation, we were really digging to get something that provided some added value, but from my point of view, low. Still interesting. So basically, we identified the bugs that with more modifications. and to see the number of corrective actions, so the bugs that were fixed in those files. And what we saw is that, yes, the people using the old methodology, they were adding like 10% more of issues because they were working more on fixes. But what was more relevant is that we identified that the files, the places where those bugs were located, were the files that both teams were collaborating in. So the files, and there were only a few small sets, the files that they were collaborating were the pain, the root cause. So everything, all the bugs, most of the bugs were located there, okay? So from the point of view of an software architecture, this may help to improve the situation. From the point of view of the organization, from a point of view, this was an example of something you should not be doing at the beginning of the process. And I think that's all from my side. Yep, that's everything from my side. You have questions? Happy to answer them.
Any questions for Luis?
Okay, awesome. So you've been doing this for a while. Are there any kind of overreaching recommendations that you give to people, like don't use the Atlassian stuff, use the open source stuff, or the other way around, or do this or do that? Or is there any major insights you've gleaned?
When you work with open source, you learn that tools are not that relevant. When we tell people that Linux is still using the mailing list to review code, they get crazy, and they do in a very efficient way. So tooling is not that relevant from my point of view. It is relevant that when you work with data, you avoid the vendor lock-in. So you have a provider like me, you should avoid that someone is going to take your data with you, even if it is in a SaaS environment.
Okay.
But regarding the tooling, I don't think it's that relevant, to be honest.
Okay, and what was the insight about Linux and the mailing list? Sorry,
There is a Linux kernel, they use the mailing list to review code. Instead of having GitHub PRs or GitLab merge requests, they do it with the mailing list.
Yeah.
And I know that in the past, at least in the past, the Zen project was doing the same.
Okay.
Not sure if they are doing it now.
Okay, and that's okay. Mailing list.
They are being super efficient.
Okay.
People outsiders complain, how is it possible that they keep using a very old tool for that? Well, can you do it better than them? I guess you cannot. So.
Okay, thanks.
Just to clarify, what you said there was the tool isn't really important at the end of the day. It was the process that using the tool, not the tool itself, and the data that was important, not the tool.
Yep.
And just to be clear, so and Bitergia came to us, and I think one of the reasons that you and Agustin said that you came to us because our data was completely open, so it gave you a data source that people weren't trying to protect.
It is be able to apply it for the whole supply chain of the software, or maybe whole project, and I mean for example, AGL uses for many open source software project, so that I mean it is applied for the analyze for the whole software supply chain, or maybe
Your question is whether we are applying this for the whole AGL or only for a subset, or if you can apply the same idea with the same idea we are testing with AGL with other projects. We are indeed we've done this in the past, where we worked to creating an open example, open use case with AGL Fox. So this is why we are doing the same thing. And luckily, luckily we have many customers lately, so we are not progressing as much as fast as we can, but we are this in the open. So this is why I shared before in the QR this link with you, because this is something that we've learned from the past, and we hope that the knowledge is available to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Can your platform use also some kind of log data for SaaS, so for cloud infrastructure provider, or is more dedicated to the software development? So I see
The platform the platform is open source. You or your organization can download the platform and use it to collect data and get data ready for the insights and metrics, etc. So when we provide the service, we use the same tool, but the data is from our customers. So when they leave, they take the data with them, and we remove them from our infrastructure.
Okay, thanks everybody. It's time for lunch. Lunch will be the same as yesterday downstairs. And thank you, Louis.
Thank you, Walt.